I am going to start recording as we get ready to go. We'll give them just another minute or so, but if I don't hit record now, I won't remember. Good morning, folks, and welcome to our corn session. We'll give folks just another minute to come in. Take the poll if you've got a chance. If you're an ag lit coordinator, you aren't winning a prize, so don't worry about it. All right, as we finish up here, I'll share the results real quick, and we'll go over this. Had some people contact me and ask about who you send a thank you note to. I'll send that out a little bit later. But prizes, if you are participating as a teacher, not as an ag literacy coordinator, but as a teacher, if you fill out the evaluation at the end, we wait a day or two and we draw a random number. And if you are one of those people that filled out the evaluation, you win a prize. If you've already won one, we put your name back, we draw again until we get someone who hasn't won. So if you want to win a prize, that's great. 12 of you won and used your prizes. That's great. So we're typically sending out lesson plan booklets, typically a book, maybe some sort of activity. So you get something like that. So if you want a prize, and you're not being paid to do this ag literacy kind of stuff, you can do that by getting your chance in by filling out the evaluation that helps you get the credit for this. So that's how you get that. Our website address, www.beyondthebarndoor.wordpress.com. Everything that we do, the recordings of this, all the extra resources are on www.beyondthebarndoor.wordpress.com. If you go to our website, agintheclassroom.org, there's a bright yellow banner at the top that'll link you right there. So that's the blog where all the recordings and lessons are housed. This fall, I ask you what you'd do. We're interested in putting some bite-sized professional development together once a month that we would do. I appreciate your honesty. I'd just like to string together a couple successful weeks. Me too. That's long-term planning in our world right now as we pivot to the new stuff. So what we're interested in is how we can best serve you. So we will look at that. Keep that in mind. Some monthly professional development. Just so you know, we do have a plan for August, September, and October. And last night was one of those nights. I don't know if any of you've had this, but I got up about 3:30 this morning and had an hour and a half's worth of ideas that just came out in planning. So we've got some other things. I sent some to some secret advisory members too and asked their thoughts and opinions. So I think we've got some really unique things coming up. So that's that. So we're going to stop that poll. And folks, I'd like to welcome you all. Today we're going on our trip with our corn interns, the Illinois Corn Growers Association. I'd like to welcome together the dynamic duo of Alexa Vincent and Katie Smith. They're both from the Illinois Corn Growers Association, and they are the interns this year for the Corn Growers Association. Alexa, we'll start alphabetically. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing and where you're from, and how you ended up at the Corn Growers.
Yeah, well, my name's Alexa. I'm from Bloomington. I've lived here for the last 3 years. I go to school at Eastern in Charleston, and then I'm going to graduate this December, majoring in interpersonal communications and minoring in 2D studio art. So I don't have any agriculture background. This is my first time doing anything with agriculture, so I'm learning a lot. But basically what brought me here was just the actual work that we were doing there with, you know, graphic design and like displays and redesigning a bunch of their promotional material is what drew me to Illinois Corn. And I really like it here. I'm having a good time.
Very cool. Very cool. And Katie Smith, why don't you introduce yourself?
All right, so I'm Katie. I'm from Walnut, Illinois, up in Bureau County, so north central Illinois. I am a student at Illinois State. I'll be a senior this fall in Ag Communications and Animal Industry Management. I grew up in 4-H and FFA. Didn't really completely see myself going into agriculture, but then I started showing pigs pretty late on and realized that I absolutely loved it, and that's definitely what I wanted to do. So Illinois corn really appealed to me. I'd heard a lot of really great things about their communications internship through other students that had went to Illinois State before me. And it just seemed like a really good, like, broad overview of different ways to communicate and advocate for agriculture, which really appealed to me. And I'm really enjoying it too.
Very cool. And Alexa, not being from a farm, you did grow up in Mackinac, so there is a little bit of agriculture in the area.
Yes, I was like around it, so I know some things.
Right. So typically, what would you be doing as an internship back when you were sold this position back in the early spring? What were you supposed to be doing? I think the corn interns have a unique opportunity a lot, specifically with the corn belters and stuff that sometimes ends up happening with them. So can you explain a little bit about corn and what usually would go on?
Yeah, so one of our main things is that we would have been traveling around to all the summer ag institutes sorry, I have the phone on my Surface Pro and I don't know how to turn it off. So if you hear ringing, I apologize. So we would have normally went around to each of the summer ag institutes and given the presentation in person, which I was super excited to do, but unfortunately we've had to adapt, but I think this is a great solution to that. And then we work really closely with the corn belters, which is the semi-professional, I think it is, baseball team in Normal. And we just make promotional materials for them to help promote corn, because that's why they were started.
Right, the corn crib in Bloomington, that's the baseball stadium, the corn crib, and they're the corn belters. So yeah, there's all sorts of corn things that go on there. Keep going, Katie. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And then one thing that we still get to do is that we're designing new displays to send out to different trade shows, Farm Progress Show, potentially even State Fair if they have that, hopefully next year, and that kind of thing. So that's been really fun. That's been great for graphic design. We've been designing brochures, kind of like this one that isn't finished, but there's a little sneak peek. And different things like that. So that hasn't changed, which has been good.
We were also going to interview farmers to help promote them and like give a face to agriculture. And we've been able to do that a little bit. We had one interview and then we were able to watch a video being shot and edited on
for Illinois Farm Families.
Yeah, so all of our interns and their organizations, so corn, beef, pork, dairy, also soybean, and the Illinois Farm Bureau all belong to a coalition called Illinois Farm Families. You can find those folks, you can find them on Facebook at Illinois Farm Families, or watch them on their website at watchusgrow.org, and it talks about putting that face to the farmer. So we've linked to some of those things on the blog site, but we'll talk a little bit about those to begin with. But one thing we did ask Alexa and Katie to do is provide some kind of an overview video, like our field trip, like we've been doing. Now, Zach's on here, so Katie, I'm sure he's really excited that you gave the shout out to the pork and showing pigs. Unfortunately, although corn is corn, it's really not corn, but the corn growers have some very specific priorities legislatively and also for their members. So what you're going to see in this video that they shot are several of their priorities. So with that, I'm going to we'll go ahead and sit back, give us just a couple minutes, and we will watch the corn grower intern visit to the farm. Here we go. Going to blow this up. And I'm going to start the video. Here we go.
Hi, my name's Alexa Vincent.
And I'm Katie Smith, and we are the 2 communications interns for Illinois Corn this summer.
Conservation has become increasingly important to the corn industry, and many farmers have made great efforts to ensure sustainability.
We had the opportunity to interview Dirk Rice, Illinois Corn Marketing Board Vice Chair from Champaign County, as well as obtain footage from Sugar Grove Nature Center and from Evan Holting, a Northern Illinois corn farmer.
This is, beans planted into cereal rye. The cereal rye we came in after corn harvest. It was essentially just blown on with a little bit of potash And normally my program is vertical tillage, just lightly incorporated. Last fall, because it's so wet, we just blew this on, and the rain incorporated it, so it got off to a little later start than I would have liked. And then we spray it, terminate it, and plant it. The next day is what I'm planning to do. The roots give me, what I used to get with deep tillage. They're breaking up the ground, creating water channels. You're getting better microbial activity in the soil. You're getting good erosion control when you have, really bad, damaging rains in April and May, and this year in June. And it'll soak up any nitrogen that was left over after the corn. In our soils, we have a lot of organic nitrogen, and so it's actually going to tie some of that up also, but hopefully what it's doing is preserving more of that for next year's corn crop. With the full tillage program, when you're getting 2, 3, 4-inch rains in the spring, one farm I got a 6-inch rain in June, you get a lot of erosion with it. And so this is holding my soil in place a lot better. You actually do, when you get in hot and dry periods early, you see a difference in the beans. It protects them a little bit, keeps the ground a little cooler. They don't show the effects of long hot spells near as bad.
So, cover crops reduce wind and water erosion, improves water filtration, absorbs excess moisture, controls weeds, can be a food source for livestock, and can even provide nutrients for pollinators. Within these cover crops, many farmers have pollinator plots which consist of many different plant species, such as milkweed. Milkweed is a source of pollen and/or nectar for pollinators like butterflies, moths, bees, and wasps. While the advances in technology meant to improve how corn is grown have been successful, it has hurt plants like milkweed that monarchs are dependent on. Thankfully, there have been great efforts made by our Illinois farmers to fix this.
This pollinator habitat is from a corn farmer in northern Illinois. It was planted where there was an old house foundation and nothing else was able to grow. But as you can see, these native plants are thriving here, and they are giving our butterflies, bees, and other pollinators a place to live and grow.
Our video has only scratched the surface of the efforts Illinois farmers are taking to ensure that our planet is sustained for future generations. If you have any thoughts or questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us here at Illinois Corn.
Perfect. That's just scratching the surface, like they said, of what's going on within Illinois corn. And in the first part of the video, we talked about the ability for cover crops to help with wind and water erosion. Alexa and Katie, as we were getting people on this morning, we talked about the front that moved through last night. How much rain did you get in Bloomington? Remind people of that.
At least 6 inches, maybe a little bit more though.
And at least 6 inches, and those 6 inches came pretty quick too. It wasn't a gentle soaking rain over 2 or 3 days. It came at once. So as they mentioned in the video, that aspect of cover crops, specifically, it's kind of funny, here we are, the corn growers, but he was talking about, he was showing soybeans because the corn had been harvested. We were just, because not everybody knows, but those were soybeans he was talking about. The corn's the tall stuff, the soybeans are the short stuff. But he'd harvested the corn last year and then planted cover crops. Talk a little bit about the cover crop efforts from the corn growers and what you've seen while you've been working there.
Yeah, so a lot of farmers will opt to, right after harvest, they'll opt to put in another plant. Usually, like he had cereal rye. Sometimes there's like forms of wheat too that you can put in that just they're able to spread it easily over the ground, and that will germinate and grow during the winter, and then just the root structure of those plants will hold the soil in place so that like if there gets a lot of wind, or like when it snows and then the snow melts off, that can take a lot of the soil and the nutrients with it. But with the cover crops on there, that helps to keep more of that in place so that you can use the soil and those nutrients in the next growing season.
Right, and Alexa, you talked about in the video the other benefits of cover crops besides just protecting the soil. Do you want to share a little bit about that and corn's involvement with specifically the livestock industry?
Yeah, it's able to be used as feed for livestock as well.
Right, for hay, so they could plant hay products that could be used for that as well. Yeah. So Katie, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, they can use it for hay, or different types ground in. Usually it is used just for hay, the cover crop part is. And then corn itself, though, in the livestock industry, not only do they use the regular field corn ground up in a lot of livestock feed, but from ethanol production, you also get what's called dried distillers grains, and those can be added back into livestock feed as well, and helps to use more of the whole corn kernel.
Right. So that was what that's what I was going for. The transition there is, though, about this soil conservation, and one of the aspects of corn, and the Illinois corn growers and corn farmers are not only keeping the soil in place, but taking care of the soil. So the cover crops can help with nutrients as well, or that idea of rotational planting. So corn one year, soybeans the next year, to help put nitrogen back into the soil. But talk a little bit about what you've learned about corn and healthy soil.
Like, what do you like?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking about how farmers are taking care of the soil besides just keeping it in place. What other aspects are going on?
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so like you said, you can plant soybeans to put nitrogen back in, but then some farmers will still have to apply extra nitrogen. But one of the big things that Illinois corn is working with is what we call PCM, or precision conservation management. And that they've done a lot of studies and stuff about the use of nitrogen, and one of the things they found is that it's better to use just the amount that's needed, not extra, because if you use extra nitrogen, that also adds extra costs, which cuts into your profits. But it's also not as good for the soil, because if the plant isn't using all that's there, then that'll run off into the water supply.
So it's not only soil conservation, it's water conservation as well. A couple weeks ago, Chris talked about that, and the idea of the 4 R's: the right rate, the right time, the right place, and the right stuff. That's what we want to do. Teachers, for you, that should sound familiar, because that's differentiated instruction. So that's what our farmers are doing out in those individual fields, taking care of that material. Now, somewhere in the shed, and as interns, I don't know how much time you've been able to spend in the shed at corn growers, or the closet at the beef, or wherever, but one thing that the corn growers have, and I bet they're there somewhere, a couple of years ago, corn growers they were really talking about healthy soil, and I bet somewhere you have some shredded underwear that was planted. Have you guys come across that in the underwear challenge?
I have not come across it at the Illinois Corn Office. My community college actually did something with it, so like I'm familiar with the project, but I have not seen Illinois Corns.
Well, Corn did it a couple years ago, so hopefully they did throw those underwear away. But Katie, since you do have experience with it, why don't you talk about that, the Soil Your Underwear challenge that your community college did?
Yeah, so basically we got new packs of underwear, and we took them out to the different test plots that we had for our community college, and we put them into the soil, and you basically just bury them in the soil and leave them there for a while, however much time you determine for your experiment, and then you'll go back later and you'll dig it up and you'll see how much of the underwear is actually left. Because if there's a good microbial population in the soil, then that will eat away at the cotton that the underwear is made out of, and basically that's good. You want that.
You want that, exactly. So for Katie, one thing I encourage you to do at Eastern, somewhere, because they wouldn't know what to do. Alexa, you can take some underwear and bury it somewhere at Eastern and let people know what exactly is going on. So I think they would be interested in that. We do have a link to that Healthy Soil Challenge on the blog site. And one of the big things about that is for teachers, it would have been great to do that at Earth Day if we would have been in session and dig it up when you come back to school. But you can also plant it this fall and then dig it up next spring. But the goal is to see how healthy your soil is. And farmers across Illinois are really concentrating on healthy soil efforts. All right. So another key part of this is we're going to grow corn. And corn, you know, a couple weeks ago, middle of June, it just wasn't looking real good. Then all of a sudden, we got the right amount of rain and the right amount of heat, and things started going, and things really took off. But now we've got markets for corn, and I'm sure that's part of your activities as well. And Katie, you mentioned this. One of the things that we use corn for is ethanol. And can you tell us a little bit about corn and ethanol and the priorities of ethanol within the Illinois Corn Growers Association?
Yeah, so like you said, ethanol opens up an additional market for corn, which we actually produce technically too much corn. We always have a surplus every year. So we're always looking for new markets and new ways to use corn that will also help the environment. And ethanol is definitely a great way to accomplish both those goals. When ethanol is added to gasoline, it reduces emissions such as like carbon dioxide by up to 40% even, which those emissions are what pollutes the air. So if the ethanol is able to reduce that amount, then we have less air pollution to our environment, which ends up benefiting everyone.
Exactly. And for our teachers online, one of the past corn grower interns is Chris Wyant. He's now our education manager. And it was 15, 16 years ago, he was the one that went around to the Summer Ag Institutes, and he did a really cool activity burning ethanol and burning gasoline to show teachers how cleanly it burned. That was a really, really cool activity. It's kind of dangerous too, but Katie and Alexa did share a cool video, and I want to share that now because it is totally worth the share about how clean ethanol burns. So give me a second here. We're going to share this next video on ethanol. I'm going to escape out of this. So, all right. So maybe. Yep, there we go. So clean air, cleaning the air. The ethanol versus gasoline debate. Make this big. And here we go.
You often hear that ethanol is a cleaner burning fuel than gasoline, but what does that really look like? Well, on the left we have a fuel lamp filled with pure ethanol, and on the right we have an identical lamp filled with regular unleaded gasoline. As you can see, the ethanol lamp produces no particulate emissions, while the gasoline lamp puts off a thick black smoke. Now let's try to collect some of that smoke. We'll add in a metal funnel around each lamp and place a white cotton square over the top. Let's light them up and see what happens after 30 minutes. At just 5 minutes, you can already see the soot building up on the edge of the gasoline cloth. Halfway through, we can actually see the gasoline cloth getting darker while the ethanol cloth remains completely clean, except for a few specks that blew over from the gasoline lamp. Keep in mind, the ethanol lamp is still fully burning. That's 30 minutes. Let's see the results. Despite looking much less intense, the ethanol's cloth and funnel feels about the same temperature as the gasoline's. The ethanol cloth is just as clean and white as it was 30 minutes ago. The gasoline cloth, on the other hand, is covered in a thick layer of black soot. The same goes for the metal funnel, where the ethanol kept it clean and shiny, while the gasoline covered it in a dirty black film. The choice is clear.
So let's get out of that and stop sharing. So that's a really, really cool demonstration. And I believe that was probably filmed at the corn grower's office. I could kind of see what I thought was the corn grower office back there. So that wasn't some, mad scientist kind of thing. That was done by an intern filming that in the office. And the cool part about that is you see how clean ethanol burns. And it's a fuel that we're able to produce locally. So on without even thinking about the clean air stuff, that idea of growing our own fuel. Now, do you guys get to drive the ethanol truck, the truck emblazoned with the big ethanol logos?
We don't. I think somebody else is using it right now, so we haven't gotten to drive that.
If you were going to Summer Ag Institute, you'd be pulling up in a big ethanol truck, blazing with it on the corn on the side. But that's a really cool activity and experiment. Now I want to talk a little bit about, okay, so we grow corn, we turn it into fuel. All right, now, Katie and Alexa, if we're growing corn for fuel, how are we going to feed everybody then? Can you explain what happens when we turn corn into ethanol? What are the byproducts? You mentioned this briefly a little bit earlier, but let's talk about that.
Yeah, so one of the main byproducts of ethanol is dried distillers grains, like I mentioned, which can be used to feed livestock. So when you make ethanol, it only uses the starch portion of the kernel of corn. So the dried distillers grains that are left over at the end are really high in protein, which is a really good additive to our livestock feeds, which then produces meat for us to eat.
But also make sweetener and is that also part of
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Go.
Yeah, they also make sweetener and starch was what I was gonna say.
Yeah, sweetener and oil. Yeah. Because the starch is used to make the ethanol, and then that leaves you with the protein portion of it, and then also the oil part of it. So we can take that and use it for uses.
So when at the end of an ethanol production, you're left with so the ethanol plant is their trash. They aren't using it, but it's really not trash. It's used for something else. And it really comes down to that DDGs, those distillers dried grains that go into animal protein. That's a protein that goes into feed animals. So that's another connection to the livestock industry. And if you remember back to Zach in our pork video, so we get the corn, they grow the corn, we can turn the corn into stuff, or we can turn it into the protein with ethanol, and then we feed it to the animals. The animals produce the manure, which is a form of nitrogen, which can grow more corn. You see how it all works? It just makes you stop and think about how that works. And ethanol production, there are several facilities. Unfortunately, some of them were shuttered early when people stopped driving. March 17th, everybody stopped driving for a while. However, just like teachers had to pivot, remember, we're producing alcohol. And what did they do with that alcohol that they were producing? Katie, you want to jump on that?
Yeah, so a lot of ethanol plants were able to transition to making hand sanitizer, because obviously we ended up having a shortage of hand sanitizer a while ago, but you can use the same alcohol component from that to switch it over to use as disinfectant.
So I don't know if that's one way of saying it. That's exactly what happened. But your hand sanitizer for your students, when they're familiar with that, again, there's alcohol associated with it. So with that, our hand sanitizer, that's an alcohol. We're producing alcohol. That's what they're doing, and that's what you burn. So it does make you stop and think. We got a comment over there because where are we getting the oil from? Is it cheaper? What happens with it? And with that activity, remember, we're not using 100% ethanol. We use right now the highest is E85, so it's 85% ethanol versus E15, which is a 15% ethanol. One of the things that we've done in Illinois specifically, and for the people in the northeastern part, the goal is to try and reduce emissions and prevent smog, prevent air pollution. So by adding the ethanol in, you see that you're reducing that by making it cleaner, by stopping and making it cleaner. So, but that's only one product. What about other things that we can do with that corn? And I'm going to lead you here, Katie. I didn't tell you this. I want to talk a little bit about corn plastic. So
okay. Yeah, so they are working right now. Illinois Farm Families actually put out a video about bioplastics that kind of explains it more. But basically, traditional plastic bottles that you use, say for like water bottles and different things like that, that say they're recyclable, those are made with petroleum-based plastic, which petroleum is not a renewable resource. Well, the same things that are made with that petroleum, we can also turn and make out of corn plastic, which is highly renewable. We grow more corn every single year, and we can process it in a similar way to make those plastics that are more highly biodegradable and more renewable than traditional plastics.
And this is not a new idea. Even going back as far as the Salt Lake Olympics, back 20 years ago, they made their plastic cups, they made the cutlery, they made those type of things out of plastic. Probably 10, 12 years ago, Ag in a Classroom, we actually got water bottles that were made from corn plastic and passed them out, actually filled water bottles. They had water in them. So like, like Dasani or whatever, paid special for them to be shipped in from Colorado. I had one in my office until finally it just decomposed after sitting in the sun. It finally just broke down. So that is another really cool aspect of this. And I do want to share this video because it is so, you don't think about it. You just don't stop and think about what else our corn can be used for. So I want to show this video as well. I'm going to blow this up. Growing a better environment with bioplastics.
Imagine if one day every water bottle could be made out of corn, a renewable resource. I feel like my generation as a whole has realized that we do use a lot of plastic, and we are trying to limit that by using reusable straws rather than plastic ones, and reusable cups and water bottles. My name is Alexis Hartman, and I grew up on my family's grain farm in Waterloo, Illinois, where we grow corn, soybeans, and wheat. Now I go to the University of Illinois, where I major in agriculture and consumer economics. Most people don't realize that traditional plastic is made from petroleum.
We're utilizing petroleum at a rate faster than what it can be replenished. My name is John Coppert, and we do corn-based research for companies in the private sector focused on biorenewable products. We're taking corn as a single product and converting it into many products, one being bioplastics. Anything that utilizes a petroleum-based plastic could be replaced with a bio-based plastic today. Bio-based plastics are a better alternative to petroleum-based plastics because of the fact that they have a lower carbon footprint than petroleum-based plastics.
I feel like a lot of people would be receptive to a plastic made from corn just because it's very renewable. We can grow it out in the fields, grow it for future generations. It's not something that will eventually run out.
There absolutely is opportunity to do more. The surface has not even been scratched yet in the area of biorenewables and in particular bioplastics. I think the only inconvenience that exists right now is just the simple fact that these bioplastics are just not as readily available yet as the petroleum-based plastics. But they will be. And every day, we're working to make that happen.
I'll stop that there, but that's from watchusgrow.org. And one thing that for students, for your teachers, it's closer than you think in your school. If you have a 3D printer in your school, and most of you do somewhere, in the library, the STEM classroom, that spool of plastic that turns those cool things into whatever you're generating, face mask holders or nickels or quarters or whatever you're 3D doing. One of the activities that goes along with that is that spool of plastic is from PLA. And that's plant-based, usually corn-based plastic. So you already have that available. One of the activities that I really want to point out is on our Ag Mag, we talk about all of the different products and where you can get it from. So if you're looking, you can find plastic straws are really easy to find. You can find plastic cups on Amazon, that type of thing. But right now, for teachers, you already have access with the PLA from your 3D printers. That's already out there and available. So, so those are a couple of issues that are going on within corn. Finding new markets. So with ethanol and the plastics, conserving the land and taking care of the water. But what other issues have you heard about? Once we've got those markets in place, how do we get the corn there? What's an issue with that you guys have seen within Illinois corn, getting that corn from here in Illinois everywhere else?
Yeah, so we're a really big export state. Illinois is actually the largest one in the Midwest and 5th in the nation for overall exports, but we're the top corn export state, which accounts for like $2 billion worth of our exports every single year is just from corn. So one thing that is really nice about Illinois and what helps us achieve that basically is the fact that we have both the Illinois River and the Mississippi River that are super close and connected. So we're able to reach from Chicago all the way to New Orleans just through the river system, which helps a lot for transportation costs. You can transport a lot more on barges than you can by truck or train. And that also puts less emissions into the environment as well.
And that's one thing corn and the Illinois corn growers and our corn farmers are really fighting for. Illinois is key and prime from an infrastructure position because we do have highways, and there are major highways that run north, south, and east, west that you can go cross country, and also that whole idea of railroad hubs. But it's really the river system that we've seen. And you know, it is now that we're back traveling again, it is road construction season in Illinois. The little orange barrels are out and the cones are out, and that's a good thing. Unfair question, and if we need to bring in Dan, we can. But what do you know about the infrastructure system on our rivers? What's happened with our lock and dams, guys? How important is that?
Yeah. Oh, it's really important, but the Illinois River is actually at least partially, if not completely, closed right now because the locks and dams they've been there for so long that they're just kind of falling apart. So just like we have to repair our road systems, we also have to repair our river systems every once in a while. And right now we're in the middle of those repairs so that they can be improved for future shipment, but that cuts out a major portion of our shipment right now.
And, you know, it's one of those things, yeah, we need to repair the locks and dams. Understand that. And we also need to repair the roads. We totally get that as well. It's kind of easy to repair a road. You merge traffic, you know, if it's a big road thing, you build a little road over the ditch and, you know, everybody merges and slows down a little bit. Can you just imagine doing construction on a river and then getting a 6-inch rain the day before and as it comes down? So those folks that are working on those lock and dam repairs, that's a unique career, and how it's tied into agriculture that people don't necessarily think about. So not only trucks and trains, but also our lock and dams. And another cool aspect for those of you who ever travel up I-55 toward the Chicago Joliet area, that whole idea of intermodal transportation, where locks and dams and the river system and the trains and the trucks all converge into one. Those of you who've traveled up toward the Illinois River on Joliet, you might have seen some intermodal stuff and you didn't really even know what it was, but there's a lot of truck traffic up there. Well, that's because all of those cargo containers come up the Illinois River with stuff on it, and they get distributed on trucks and trains in that area. So Illinois is a transportation hub. And one of the things that happens is we ship stuff in here from other countries, and then we take those containers and we clean them out and we fill them back up with corn and we ship those back to other places. So a huge idea of transportation and how products get from point A to point B. And as Katie mentioned, she mentioned the amount, just the sheer volume of corn that is shipped around the world because we do export corn. That's a really key part of that. So we've talked a little bit about that. We've talked a little bit about ethanol and our locks and dams. How about other priorities and other things that you guys want to share with here? That's fine. So one thing that I really want to go back to, though, is I do want to share another video. And a couple of years ago, a number of Illinois agriculture groups got together on Earth Day at the state fairgrounds, and the director of agriculture and the director of conservation in Illinois and a number of commodity groups got together. And the president of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board, Don Duvall, he's a farmer from southeastern Illinois, down the Wayne-White County area. He got up and spoke about pollinators. And as a farmer, he's seen a lot of things in his life. He has children. He's a farmer. He's one of our farmers in Illinois, a champion of the industry. But things have changed. When I was a kid, my uncle, he paid us to go out and pull up milkweeds because we didn't want milkweeds. And now all of a sudden we have farmers that are planting milkweeds. And Don Duvall spoke at this event at the Illinois State Fairgrounds. It was on Earth Day, and they were getting ready to plant pollinator gardens on the state fairgrounds last year, and they were in bloom for last year's state fair. But he spoke about what those pollinators meant to his land and why he chose to do that. And I think that really brings us back to that idea of conservation. Not only are we taking care of the land and the water through all of these conservation efforts, but also the nature around us. So I do want to share this video as well. And this is from Illinois Farm Families again. Escape. There we go. And we'll go to protecting our pollinators. And this is from the Illinois Corn Growers Association, protecting our pollinators. And you'll see Farmer Don Duvall share what it means to protect pollinators.
Farmers care about the land, and they understand the importance of pollinators and pollinator habitat on the landscape. Monarchs are probably one of the most iconic pollinator species we have. Whether you're a 10-year-old or an older person, everybody knows what a monarch butterfly is. My name is Jason Bly, and I'm a conservation specialist for Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. Over the last 20 years, the monarch butterfly population has taken a steep decline. A lot of that is due to habitat loss, urban development, changes in farm practices. And so right now, the Fish and Wildlife Service is going to make the decision of whether or not to put the monarch on the endangered species list. The biggest concern is that if the monarch is on the list, what else is going to follow after that? Other pollinators are declining, and without pollinators, we don't have a food supply.
Well, I think one of the unintended consequences of the good job that farmers do with weed control is lessening the population of milkweeds, which is essential for monarch butterflies. I'm Don Duvall, and I'm from southeastern Illinois. My farm is a grain farm where we grow corn, soybeans, and occasionally some soft red winter wheat. I guess I was a little surprised at the overall value of pollinators in the food chain and how 1/3 of our food is completely dependent on pollinators. I think the agricultural community as a whole wants to be proactive in the plight of the monarch butterfly. My experience has been pollinator plots are one of the things that are very easy for farmers to incorporate on their farm.
We've got farmers coming into the local offices asking what they can do for pollinators and wanting to put milkweed into their seed mixes. So it's been a drastic change just in the last 8 to 10 years. It's kind of neat. The prairie behind us, we'll have monarchs all summer flying around, doing pollinating. And then come fall, when the migration comes through, we'll have thousands and thousands of them on our farm and around the surrounding farms.
We feel very passionate about trying to leave the world in a better place. And pollinator pots is just one of those things that we can do. And clearly, it's like that adage, if you build it, they will come. If you plant the pollinators, the butterflies will show up as well. Together, we are bringing back the monarchs.
So I let that go just a little bit. I need to stop this. Stop. All right, I will escape. I let that go just a little bit as sorry. Hold on here. We've got this. There we go. Sorry. Went ahead and forwarded to the next one. So we'll stop that. And go back to Zoom, Kevin. All right. The cool part about that, and when Don Duvall shared this at the Illinois State Fairgrounds a little over a year and a half ago, we talked about how he planted pollinator seeds the first time a couple years ago, and he knew he had to do it, and he was out there, and he remembers this milkweed. He told the story, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he told the story of a milkweed, and he remembered looking at it, and it was fine, and then a couple days later, he was like, oh my gosh, something is eating this. What have I done to this? And he went over and he examined it, and he realized it was the caterpillars that were eating it. So he'd actually, it was for him, it was this light bulb moment. And I just remember as a spectator listening to him talk about how he noticed it, and then all of a sudden it was eating it, and then he got it. He understood, it's here, it's working. Oh my gosh, this is back. And it was just a phenomenal activity. Cool thing about that is in the video, and both Katie and Alexa, they shared it in their slideshow earlier. Remember, 75% of the land in the state of Illinois is agriculture. And right now, 100,000 acres are what corn farmers and soybean farmers and farmers across the state of Illinois have dedicated to restoration of pollinator habitat. So that's a lot of land. So taking those opportunities to really embrace all sorts of unique conservation. And I also liked how Mr. Duvall talked about it was an unintended consequence. Farmers were trying to take care of weeds. They realized that this wasn't working. We needed to do something else. It was an unintended consequence. And for our teachers, one thing to remember about that is best practices. They've changed. And what happens, things change. And that's what things like the Corn Growers Association, our Soybean Association, all of our professional organizations, not only for farmers, but also for teachers, are going to help us through these new and unique times with that. So again, I wanted to bring that back up to wrap us back up to where we started. You guys did a great job with your video talking about cover crops and those type of things. Other comments? Anything else you wanted to add to that?
Not that I can think of right now.
All right. I do want to share some books. That's one thing that we do for our teachers. And if you do fill out the evaluation, this will be the book that you'll win. Corn by Gail Gibbons. And one of the key pieces, we didn't talk about this, but it is on the blog for you guys. And Alexa, this is for you. Remember, you weren't from a farm, weren't from that ag background. Sweet corn versus field corn. That's a hot topic, right?
Yes.
So,
I know
actually,
Katie's taught me.
So in our Ag Mag, it's there, but also in Gail Gibbons' book. Again, Gail Gibbons, an Illinois author, corn, talks about the difference between sweet corn and field corn. What you see growing along the roadside is typically field corn. We've got aspects of that. We've got different types of corn that are mentioned on our blog site. But Gail Gibbons' Corn, again, Illinois author, great book. Another good book that I really want to recommend is Anna's Corn. This is still available, and it should be available in libraries. And this really talks about the life cycle of a corn plant. Another Illinois author, Barbara Santucci, she wrote this book, and it's really a child psychology book. Anna in the story and her grandpa get along, and she plants her corn, and her grandpa talks about that. And during the course of the book, grandpa passes away. However, the corn is left there, and he plants the corn, and the lifestyle goes on. I remember reading this and meeting Barbara Santucci at a conference, and I'm like, oh, you got to sign this. She's like, okay. And I'm like, no, we use this all the time. And she's like, it's a book about a child dealing with death. I'm like, no, it's about corn. It's about the corn life cycle. So there is that aspect with it. Again, Anna's Corn, a great book about the life cycle and how things go on. Raymond Beal, another Illinois author. I got 3 in a row here. Illinois author Raymond Beal, Corn Belt Harvest. It's a classic. All of your coordinators should have this somewhere. And again, 4th grade level, if you have a Houghton Mifflin reading series from 4 or 5 years ago, this was actually serialized and actually put into the Houghton Mifflin 4th grade reading series a couple of years ago. So you might be familiar with Raymond Beal's Corn Belt Harvest. The cool part about it is it walks you through the entire process from planting all the way up to harvest and what goes on after it's harvested. So it goes to the elevator, and then what happens to it after it goes to the elevator. We'll skip off to some folks that aren't from Illinois. Susan Anderson and Joanne Buggy, their Awesome Agriculture Corn series. Again, you should see these available at your with your county coordinators as well. And then I also included a couple of links on ethanol and what is ethanol from the science series, the Heinemann Library Science series, that those are available as well. So with that, that's our tour to the cornfields, folks. We really appreciate your chance to join with us. We're running close to time here, but I really want to thank both Katie and Alexa adding to their corn grower internship experience. And you got to go interview the big dog too. Good job. You know, if you're going to go to a farmer, you might as well go and meet the chair of the board or the vice chair of the board. So nicely done, ladies. I appreciate your help. Yeah. Folks, with that, next week we are working on, and so next week we are working on to pumpkins. Tuesday, Chris will be here talking all about pumpkins, preparing that. Our field trip next week is a little different. Teachers, we're partnering with Illinois Reads, the Illinois Center for the Book, and an Illinois author. We've done a lot of talking about Illinois authors. We're going to meet an Illinois author, Patricia Tott, and Patricia has written a pumpkin book called Pick a Pumpkin by Patricia Tott. So we'll have Patricia Tott, Illinois author, on talking about pumpkins next week. So next week is pumpkins and reading, and that's our field trip. The following week, just to give you a heads up, we flip things around. Our field trip will be on Tuesday. Another great field trip lined up. Teachers, I think you'll really enjoy this one. Rising fifth grader from the Jacksonville area. Charlie Rogie will be our tour guide. So he's a 5th grader. He's going to be our tour guide and join us talking about all things on the farm. And then 2 weeks from today, we will actually have our final classroom lesson presentation thing. So we'll have more info on that coming soon, but we're talking about the cultures of agriculture. With that, everybody have a great week. Again, thanks to Katie and Alexa. You guys did a great job, and we really appreciate everybody joining us. With that, we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, the last day will be recorded. Ann is asking that. We will record them. There will actually be 3 different sessions that we'll do, and we're trying to work with our interns to get them recorded, their sessions as well. So yes, we will record all of those things on the last day. And with that, I'm going to stop recording here, guys. Give me just a second.